Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We know that we're going to hear some beeping in the background because people will no doubt be joining us as we start talking, but we want to make sure we do this in a timely fashion. Generally, our chamber cafes are held the first and third Friday of each month, and always no membership is required, and they are at no cost to anyone of the public who wants to attend. The cafe schedule is on the chamber website calendar and in the events section, with registration required only for Zoom access for these cafes. This week we are so happy to have Roseanne Freitas, the Communications and PR Manager for the Better Business Bureau, joining us all the way from Hawaii. So imagine the time she had to get up this morning to come on this call. And I just want to share that a little bit of housekeeping, and that, you're all muted when you come on, and when you wish to speak, just unmute yourself. Um, and remember to remute yourself when you get off, just to keep the background noise and the dogs that are barking always when we're on Zoom in the background. We are going to record this. We are recording now, and that will be pushed up to YouTube probably within 2 business days. We usually have 30 or 50 signups for these cafes. Today is a little bit smaller because what we didn't really think of, our bad, when we scheduled this, is that July and August, the end of July and the beginning of August, everyone seems to leave town. Roseanne, I think they're on their way to you. And the same thing happens in February when everybody says, I'm in Hawaii for a month. So that's why you get all of our tourists then. So we know that we all register with the best of intentions, and stuff happens. We are all busy and Zooming like crazy. So we're pretty sure we're going to have an overwhelming amount of people because of the emails we've gotten begging us to record this, which we do, because they're on vacation, they're going to come back when the kids go back to school and all that fun stuff. So we actually do send an e-blast out to a series of different audiences in a very wide group with the links to the YouTube events that we put up. So we should get hundreds more views in the next couple of weeks. Remember that the chat is available to you if you have questions during the presentation, because we want to give them the opportunity from the Better Business Bureau to answer all the questions before you have them. And then I have some from our Facebook page as well, if they're not covered within this group. At the end of the cafe, after questions, we'll have a few minutes to share our brieflies, what's going on in your organization, things that are coming up, all of that fun stuff. The Chamber became an accredited Chamber of Commerce, partnering with the BBB to serve as your locally accredited business partner, and so that we can stand out from the rest and provide a wealth of benefits to you. And I'm going to turn this meeting over to Roseanne to share with you what the BBB is and what they do, because I am guessing you have absolutely no idea what the reality of this is. Roseanne, welcome.
Thanks, Arlene, and thank you everybody for coming today. And yes, I am out in Hawaii. And yes, I think all your tourists are here. So for us, it's kind of nice to get tourism back, but like everybody else, we are still having a labor shortage and a supply chain issue. So it most definitely is a new world out here, but I am fortunate. So what I'm going to do is start to share my screen. And I hear some noise in the background. I don't know if anybody needs to turn mute. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm listening. It's not my dogs. But if you do hear barking, my dogs have decided, one of them loves her 10 minutes of fame. So she likes to join all my meetings. Oh, can you go ahead, Arlene? Remember, I had to go back out, so you need to put me as that host again. Yeah, I was having some challenges when I first came on. Okay, let's try this again. Oh, there we go. Okay. So in front of you, you should be seeing my Better Business Bureau PowerPoint, and I can't see you guys right now. So if somebody could just I'm going to move this over here so I can actually see someone out of the corner of my eye. There you go. So you guys see it? Okay. I have 3 screens, so I am most definitely juggling the different screens. So bear with me as I do that too. So let's talk a little bit about the Better Business Bureau. First of all, just as we go into this, what is the Better Business Bureau? Just to let you know, we are, Better Business Bureaus are their own different offices, and then usually in areas, you'll notice that. So over the last, I don't know, 5 to 6 years, our region has grown. So we are actually the largest Better Business Bureau, and we are an 8-state district. We are Alaska, Hawaii, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, Washington, Western Wyoming, and the Denver, Colorado area. So we are a very large Better Business Bureau. And you wonder probably why. It gives us a lot of resources we just couldn't do as individual areas. So we have like dedicated teams to certain aspects that some other Better Business Bureaus have to maybe have one person do several jobs. So it does give us more resources. And yes, we have people up in Washington. We have an office in Tacoma. But you're getting me because our PR comms team, I usually do a lot of the presentations. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is the BBB, and we're going to see, well, I have a link here, but I think what I'll do is I'll just put that in the chat later and you guys can watch it. It's a really cool video that highlights some of our businesses, but we're going to start with the history of the Better Business Bureau. I promise it won't be too boring. So on that history, get back to the right screen there. The gentleman on the screen that you're seeing is Samuel C. Dobbs. And at the time, he was the sales manager for Coca-Cola. He would eventually go on to be president. However, it was 1912, and in 1906, the Pure Food and Drug Act had come into play. And like many other companies, Coca-Cola was sued. So they go to court. I guess the charges were unfounded. However, afterwards, as Samuel is talking to his attorney for Coca-Cola, the attorney says, why, all advertising is exaggerated. Nobody really believes it. And of course, this was back in the magic elixir days. And Samuel Dobbs had an issue with that. He said, this isn't right. People should be able to trust advertising. So that was actually the start of the Better Business Bureau. It would go through a few other iterations before it actually settled on the name Better Business Bureau, but it started with advertising and with writing advertising code. Now that was 1912, obviously fast forward, here we are, but we're more than just advertising. However, advertising is still part of what we do. But it's always kind of an interesting story that this group started with a bunch of executives saying, we're going to police ourselves. And to this day, that's what we still are. We are a nonprofit, but we are not federally or state funded. We are only funded by the businesses that support the mission. And we're going to talk about what that mission is. So the mission for us is to be the leader in advancing marketplace trust. And if you see the whole vision, it's an ethical marketplace where buyers and sellers can trust each other. We're about trust. We're about both the business and the consumer doing the right thing. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that, but that's ultimately what we're about. So how do we do this? One, we set standards for marketplace trust, and we're going to, on our next slide, go into those 8 standards that we have. We encourage and we support best practices by engaging with and educating consumers and businesses. So like this is one platform that we use, like with you guys being able to educate, but I do a lot of different presentations, both to businesses and to consumers, obviously different focuses. Businesses, it's how to be better. And that's what we're here. We're not here to judge. We're here to help take businesses to a better level, but also to educate consumers on shopping. There is a lot, unfortunately, that goes wrong in that process. We like to highlight those marketplace role models, the people who are rising above the standards and doing the right thing. And we most definitely call out that substandard behavior. It's there, unfortunately, and that is our role to highlight it and to warn consumers. But we also have a community of trustworthy businesses and charities. So a lot of people don't always realize we actually have the charity portion, and that is on our website, Give accredited.org. And that's where you can go research a charity. We have 20 standards for charities. So when you're looking and you want to see if something's legitimate, that's a really good place when you're donating money to look and research. So let's talk about those 8 standards. Now, when you look at it, to me, it just seems pretty straightforward. These are things your parents kind of taught you, right? Build trust. Well, they didn't tell me to advertise, honestly, but they told me to tell the truth and be transparent and honor my promises. But we also talk about being responsive and safeguarding privacy and embody integrity. Now, that looks very simple. We actually have a very long list of things that make up each component. But some of that includes licensing. If you're in a profession that requires a certain license, making sure that you have it, that all of that is up to date. Same with insurance, making sure that you are done your due diligence as a business to follow the rules and laws. Again, advertising. It gets really clouded when people start to say, hey, we're the best in the state. We actually will, if they do that, we'll say, well, show us, give us some data. So we are looking, you have to substantiate everything you say in an ad. Also telling the truth. I know it's so simple, but we all know that doesn't always happen. Transparency, we've heard a lot about it, especially through the pandemic, but that applies to everything. The consumer needs to understand the process. And as a business, most businesses understand that, right? But it's really sharing with the consumer so that they can make an educated decision. If you promise it, you're going to follow through. Now, sometimes things happen, especially in a pandemic where you have certain supply chain issues, but it's also going back to the consumer and saying, look, here is what's happened, but being totally transparent and honest about it. They're not going to like what they hear, but that helps build the trust because you're not waiting for them to call you so you can tell them. You're being proactive. You're being as honest as you can. And while they may not be happy with the solution, they know they can still trust you. And that's super important to any bottom line of a business is trust. When we talk about be responsive, a lot of people, I've heard this from businesses and I've heard this from consumers about our complaint process. And the businesses will say, you guys are on the side of the consumer. Then the consumer says, you're on the side of the business. Now, to tell you the truth, we're not on either side. To be an independent third party, we can't take sides in a dispute. What we do once a complaint comes into the Better Business Bureau is we send it out and we wait to see if the business is responsive. So hence, that's what the be responsive means. And as we go further into this, we are really going to focus on a little bit on that because that's the one that seems to confuse people. Safeguard privacy, you've heard all of it lately with all the ransomware attacks, the breaches. This issue, unfortunately, isn't going away. We're here to help most definitely educate people on what they need to know. Small businesses do not think this will happen to them. They think that they're so low on the totem pole, nobody will go after them. However, they're the low-hanging fruit because usually they don't have quite the IT department some big corporation has. So again, it's really helping educate on our side to help educate those businesses and make them aware of these issues. And then embody integrity, right? We all kind of know what that means. It's doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And just living those values within your business. So that's really what we're about. At the end of the day, we're about trust. So you might have seen, you've probably seen letter grades. You've seen people with the seal that you're seeing on the screen right now, and you may be a little confused. So I do want to clear some of that up. When someone has the BBB accredited business seal, it means they've supported the mission. And yes, that means they are paying to use the seal, full transparency, but that they've met all of our guidelines, all of our standards. They can't use it if they don't. And I'll tell you right now, even if they're using it and something comes in and they violated a standard, they go before what we call an accredited business review, and they can lose their accreditation. And unfortunately, that does happen. Now, when you just see a letter grade, what that letter grade is telling you is that the information we currently have on the business, everything looks good. And some of that is if they've had complaints, they're responsive to it. We don't see any issues at that point on licensing. However, we haven't done as necessarily deep of a dive on their business as we have on an accredited business. So there's the difference. The letter grade does tell a story, but you may have to just do a little bit more homework, but it does tell a great story. The accredited business is really held to that standard. And so we are most definitely done a deeper dive. And when we talk about that, doing a more of a thorough investigation, we're looking at not just licensing, we're looking at any court actions. We're looking at we're doing background checks on the business owners. We're looking at their website. We're looking at all that they put on their website. Is it misleading in any way? We're looking again at that advertising and are they doing what they say they're doing? So we do a very thorough search on these businesses and their owners to make sure that they do live up to that standard. So if you've heard people say, oh, all you have to do is pay the Better Business Bureau and you can be an accredited business, it's not true. It is very much not true. If you don't meet our standards, you can't be an accredited business. Now, it doesn't mean we say, no, you're never allowed. It means we tell you this is where we see some issues, and then can you fix them? And then a lot of businesses just don't always know what they need to fix. And that's what we're there for. So we help them through it. You'll see right now, 84% of our accredited businesses believe that their accreditation builds trust with their customers. And that kind of is helpful for a business when there's so much competition. Having something like this to show that, yeah, we've met these standards according to the Better Business Bureau. So if you become an accredited business, what does that mean? So they get to use the BBB trust mark. That is that accredited business that you see on the screen. It does give you that competitive edge. If everybody's the same and they're looking for something that makes you stand out from a bid of some sort, it most definitely can help. You get to use the seal on their own website. So you can put it on the website, you can put it in your advertising. So if you've watched a commercial or seen something and you see the seal, that's because they want to show everybody, yes, we've met these standards. With that comes some public confidence. People do still follow the Better Business Bureau. And this last year through the pandemic, I think was a year that really for us, we really had to showcase what we've done and what we can do. We were very busy. A couple of different reasons. Businesses were faltering with the economic situation, and we were trying to most definitely get information to help support those businesses. But consumers were so confused where to shop. Our scam tracker report went up. We had 25% increase in reporting. FTC numbers back that up. There was just an increase in fraudulent activity for consumers last year. So it really highlighted the importance of what we do. You're also, if you're an accredited business, you're part of self-regulation of the business community. You're part of it. You're part of the solution. You can get an enhanced listing on our bbb.org website. And people can go there, they can search just by accredited business only, or they can look at everybody. BBB, we do business reviews, and where we do it slightly different is we have to vet those reviews. So it doesn't just come in and get posted. We have to, first of all, make sure that person is legitimate. We send it to the business to confirm that there was a transaction. And then once all that's confirmed, then we can post the review. So that way we're doing our due diligence to make sure we're not getting fake reviews posted on anybody's portfolio. We have a request a quote program where they can actually just go through that platform and reach out to your business. Media exposure all the time. I'm out here in Hawaii, and I am most definitely on TV a lot, to the point that it's kind of funny because all my friends make fun of me. But it's great because I'm able to get out information. We talk about different things like obviously the fraud that's impacting the world. We also talk about how to shop, where to shop, how to look for credible businesses. So we're doing our part on that and to educate businesses and most definitely consumers. Risk management, that really goes into helping you set up your business to help mitigate some of those risks. And that goes right into our dispute resolution services, which is probably, having owned a business before, that was to me the biggest benefit. And that's where we get into the conciliation, mediation, and arbitration. So accredited businesses can actually go through our mediation arbitration process for free. Yep, for free. Because we've already know that they've met a certain level. So now we're just helping to resolve it. Now, our conciliation phase is what you see when you get into the Better Business Bureau when somebody files a complaint, and that back and forth from the business to the consumer, that's called conciliation. So we're just an independent third party that's facilitating information. That's it. And a lot of times that's all it needs. However, if not, then they can go to either mediation or arbitration. One of our benefits that most people don't always take advantage of, and that's our advertising review. So we talked about, does an ad, is it straightforward? Is there any deception? Well, if there's any questions, our accredited businesses can go right to that department and they'll review it for them to say, hey, no, this is good, or no, this could be a little misleading. You might want to reword this. Employee advantages. I was so surprised. I did a presentation out here in Hawaii to the University of Hawaii, and we were asking them, you know, how do you know the BBB? And this one student said, well, I just go there and check when I'm applying for a job to see what the BBB says about the company. You know, I didn't realize people did that, but they want to see what that company's background is before looking. So it does give you a little advantage there. We actually have a dedicated hotline for our accredited businesses. We have a newsletter, which goes along with our website, and I will have the post to our website. It's with our trust-BB site. It's the resource for businesses. It's where we're hearing topics they want to hear about and we're writing about it. And then we, especially through the pandemic, we had hosted webinars. We were bringing in experts from PPP loans to pivoting, you know, during a pandemic, different marketing. So we have a lot of things that we're offering as value added to our businesses. So that's a little bit about the accreditation and some of the value of accreditation. But I do on some of them just want to go a little more in depth. So when we talk about that ad review, which I mentioned earlier, it really is making sure that the ad looks correct and that you're not promising something you can't. Many of you guys know the My Pillow guy, you know, the really awesome pillows, which I've never slept on. So I can't tell you that I know that. However, where he got in trouble with the Better Business Bureau was they would say, this is a special on the computer, on the TV commercials. However, that was actually their everyday price. So that was kind of misleading to consumers. So they asked him to stop saying that because it is their everyday price. So that's kind of what we talk about when we look at those ads. But we're also willing to help businesses before they go, just to make sure they're legitimate and it sounds good, in no way misleading. So alternate dispute resolution, the ADR, the world of acronyms, right? That is the one we talked just briefly about when we talked about that conciliation. And we also talked about mediation and arbitration. So when we do that, we always tell a business, if it's the type of business that you need a contract with, we give them the verbiage to put into their contract to say, if there is a dispute, we'll use this mediation service. Most consumers are very happy with it because it is through the BBB. It is an independent third party. This really helps if you're in the construction industry, because there's so many things that can go wrong in that process, that it's nice to have someone or something you can turn to without going to litigation. Anyone who's been to litigation knows it's costly. It's emotionally costly. It just really takes its toll. And while big businesses can survive that, most small businesses cannot survive a court, the cost of court. So it really is good to be prepared, because unfortunately things do go wrong. There's no business that's ever perfect. These are questions I get. I received a complaint notice from BBB. What does that mean? Or is BBB taking sides? And why are they asking me to respond? So again, our standards is being responsive. The consumer feels for some reason that they were not able to interact with the business, so they turn to the BBB. We send the letter to the business, whether they're accredited or whether they're not accredited. And we're not taking sides. All we're doing is saying, this is what the consumer has said. What is your response? Now, some businesses completely ignore it. And if you wonder why some businesses have a bad letter grade, that is probably the #1 reason. If they continue to ignore complaints from businesses, it brings down their letter grade because they're not being responsive. Now, that's not to say all consumers are just totally straight up, right? We know some aren't, some really can nitpick. It's not about saying just please the customer. It's just facilitating dialogue. And that dialogue tells a story. So we post it. Now we do not put the names of the person who's complaining. However, we show their complaint and we show the business's response and any other back and forth that happens. Because as a consumer who's looking, reading tells you a story. It's not when businesses do things perfect. The true test of any business is when things go wrong. How do they handle it? Because there isn't a business out there that's perfect. Something will go wrong. So for consumers, they just need to know, look, this business responds. Yeah, they had a mistake there, but look, they're responding to it. Also, sometimes complaints are a really good way for us to maybe fix certain things within our organization that we weren't aware of. So understand if you, as a business owner, have received this complaint, first of all, don't freak out. I know it's so easy to get caught up in the emotions, but don't freak out. It's just an opportunity, and that's the key. It's an opportunity to tell your side of the story. So people are like, well, what should I include in my response? So we always say the facts. It's just the facts. What took place, what was your intent, what you were able to deliver on. And if there are any resolutions that you are willing to offer, put that in there. And if the offer has already been resolved, also include that. So the business I was with prior to BBB, we did get a complaint through the BBB. And I'll be honest, we were really upset because we'd already resolved it. However, that's what exactly I told the Better Business Bureau. And my response is that this was resolved and proved my documentation, and the case was closed, and it was considered resolved. A year later, the same client went on Yelp and filed a complaint with us. So all I did on my Yelp response was reference the Better Business Bureaus, that this had been filed a year ago and that we had taken care of it, and here was all of the interaction. So it just was the hardest thing, though, was sticking with the facts and not trying to let the emotions get the better of us. So as you see, it really is an opportunity to address and tell your side of the story. We always tell people, what do you, as a company, just ask yourself, did your company act in good faith? And did your company do everything you could to reasonably, remember, it's reasonable, to resolve the issue? And that really, it goes back to knowing if you did the right thing, right? It goes back to the ethics of this situation. Some customers just won't be happy. Some will be just thrilled. But going through this and responding to a customer actually helps keep trust. Is even if it's somewhat a negative issue, they see that you're responding. It helps continue to build the trust they have in your company. Or if you don't respond, then it really negates any trust they have. So another one of our features we mentioned briefly was the get a quote. So through the portal, people can go, hey, I want to click this business and I want to get a quote, and it immediately directs them to you. So it's another lead. However, I will tell you straight up, that's not really the design of the Better Business Bureau. We know that our reputation helps businesses and that we can help facilitate these quotes. But we're not necessarily a lead generation company. There are most definitely those that just get you leads all day long. We are really about the mission of Better Business Bureau. Though we can help, I won't say it's our main focus. We talked a little bit about our team, and I don't know if any of you are really aware. We have a scam tracker. Now, you probably heard the word scam associated with us because sometimes people call me the scam lady. Not that I do scams, okay? I really don't, but because I talk a lot about it. So we actually have a dedicated investigations team, and they're dealing with everything that's coming in through our scam track reporter and investigating. And sometimes we're able to find that the companies are just complete fakes, they're frauds, and they're doing just bad things to steal people's money or identity. Sometimes they're legitimate businesses that have very much a pattern of complaints, and they investigate it. And then whatever those determinings, they go to the business, if it's a legit business, and talk about trying to resolve the issues. If it can't, then we do put out a warning on the business. So in your town, if you ever wonder, you're looking, you hear about a company or you hear about something, you want to research it, you can do two things. One, go to bbb.org. If it's a legitimate business, you type in the name of the company, you type in the city, and that will populate up that company's name. If you think it's a scam and you're not able to find any business, go to our scam tracker. Now, what's really cool with the scam tracker, you can sort it by location. So you can put in the state of Washington, you can put and narrow it down, and it will tell you where they're seeing things, and it will tell you what type. So you go down and you can click on one and you can read what the person said. Again, we don't share their name. We do vet that this is legitimate, but obviously we cannot share the name for their privacy, but they're telling the story from whatever scam. Number one scam in 2020 was online purchasing. Not a surprise, right? Because we couldn't go anywhere else to buy. But the number one item that was scammed was pets or pet supplies. So if you go there, you're going to read a lot of stuff about pet scams, and people were lonely. They wanted a pet and the humane societies, a lot of them were out of pets. So they turned to breeders online, and a lot of them were fake and not real. So we actually have that team. That is a tool for everybody. Because as a business, you're a consumer too. Auto line, this one's kind of cool, and this is more from your consumer side, unless you're an auto manufacturer. We have an auto line. It is the largest dispute resolution out there, and what it is, it deals with warranty issues for cars. So most of your top manufacturers have signed on board. If there is an issue, you can go through this process. It's arbitration, and what's kind of interesting is that whatever they come up with, if the consumer isn't happy, it's a no-go. If the consumer is happy with the resolution the arbitrator gave, it's a go, whether the manufacturer accepts it or not. They've agreed to abide by whatever the arbitrator said. However, that's not the same for the consumer. So if you have an auto issue, it's a really great way to start to go through things, just for your information as a consumer. In addition to the accreditation, we actually have a marketing solutions team, and this is where we can help with the advertising. So obviously you still pay for your own advertising on this, but because we're advertising as the collective Better Business Bureau, we get really good rates. So we do Google retargeting ads, banner ads, Google AdWords, the billboard that you see on the screen, theater ads, online business directory. Now, I laugh because billboards, we can't have billboards in Hawaii. So that one doesn't apply here. However, for those who are able to use that, most definitely on the what we call the mainland, it's a great source. So what's even better is not only will we help you get the lowest rate, we'll actually do the ad for you. So that's a really good opportunity. Now, like I mentioned before, you guys are consumers. So how can the public utilize the BBB? Check those ratings at bbb.org and see if they are accredited. You can add reviews or make complaints. When it comes to reviews, most of us are really good at putting a review out if we're not happy. But we're not as good as when we're happy. So if you have a business that you really support and you really use and you really think they're great, give them a review. That really does help because we know consumers look at reviews and trust reviews. So again, we talked about the dispute resolution, mediation, arbitration. That actually is both sides for businesses and for the consumer. We have the scam tracker where people can go see what's going on. Also, when the scam tracker happens, if something happens to you, somebody has approached you with a scam, whether you've lost or haven't lost any money, report that to us. That is how we learn what's going on. We crowdsource that information. And that's how we're able to turn it around and let consumers know, especially if we start to see an uptick. All of a sudden, they're getting all these IRS phone calls. You know, they're impersonating the IRS. Then we know to do a warning again to remind consumers. And of course, you can check out charities. These are our resources. So as a business owner, put in trust-bbb.org. You'll go to that page, you'll see different tabs. We have our blogs, and we do a few blogs a week on different topics. that are out there that we're hearing from our businesses they want to hear about. Also things that we know they probably should hear about that they just don't know yet. Consumer resource is that bbb.org. That's where you go search for a business. You can also link with us on our social media platforms. So our Facebook, we have a Better Business Bureau of Western Washington. And then everything else is under the Better Business Bureau, Great West and Pacific. So the Great West and Pacific is our whole 8-state region. Facebook, we break that out so that each area has their own Facebook page. That just makes sense. We also have great resources on our YouTube channel. That's where you can see some of the videos we do. So I didn't mention them, but we have like 2-minute clips of some select businesses that we've gone and filmed them, and we tell their story, but we also tell their story about BBB and why they joined BBB. So some good stories there, but then also some videos to talk about how to book a short-term vacation, what to look for, tips on moving, just different tips that we can give both to the consumer and to businesses. And also I will send a copy of this presentation so that you guys have it. I probably should have told you that so you didn't necessarily have to write all the way through. Sorry about that, but I will send that for your reference. Again, these are our standards. This is what we're about. It's really about trust. And we invite all businesses to help us further that mission. Unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. Fraud isn't going away. It's only getting worse, especially now that we're not just shopping in our local towns anymore. Everything has gone global. And so it's really important that we understand who we're shopping with, because it is money and we lose so much money each year to fraud. So first of all, thank you. Before I stop sharing my screen, there is my contact information. Most definitely reach out. And if you're not accredited and you're interested, you can reach out to me and I can connect you, or you can go to that trust-bbb.org and click right there. You'll be able to do it that way. If you are accredited, thank you. Thank you for supporting our mission. And we're so excited about this partnership with the Jefferson Chamber of Commerce. So what that means is we're that resource for the Chamber as well. They've met our standards. They had to go through a standards review themselves, and that they have met it. So we're really trying to collaborate with a lot of different business organizations in that sense, because they're already meeting a standard and they're trying to do their best in their community. And we all fit a different little niche. And ours is here to talk about trust. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And now, do we have any questions? Is there differences between the BBB and rural area and bigger cities? Yeah, I mean, rural areas are going to be obviously different economically, but as far as the rules, no. The rules are the same whether you're a big city or you're a little area. The rules that we have to live by don't change. They're the same. However, economically, they're going to be different. Oh, there go the dogs.
Perfect.
Of course. But otherwise, no, it's the same.
So I know we had a couple of questions that came in on Facebook, and I'll go ahead and ask them, and then we'll kind of, maybe that'll generate a few more questions in the team. And I think Jay probably has one. Jay, do you want to ask yours first?
I was just following up on the question about the rural. Do you find that there's not as much, the term I usually use is critical mass of both people looking for Better Business Bureau and businesses who are part of the Better Business Bureau in rural areas like Jefferson County, as opposed to a bigger place like Seattle?
No, not really. It's really across the board. I can get stats though. I can get data. I'd have to get someone to help me because that's a little more complicated than my area. But no, I actually think it's across the board, especially just so like in construction. Construction is our #1 industry for inquiries, not for complaints, but for inquiries. So I think that people just want to know in their area, is this person reputable? Now, sometimes your smaller rural areas have, like we say in Hawaii, they have the coconut wire where everybody knows everybody. So there is a lot of validity to that. There really is, because your neighbor used them and your neighbor liked their work. But on the flip side, that can also work the opposite way, because they may do something that you're just not aware. So it is good to talk to the neighbors, but it's also good to have variety of resources to vet that business.
And the other part of that, Jay, is in the tourism piece, which is a large segment of our local market. And that is when we have all these tourists and people on the cruise ships walking through town, and they don't know what shops are reputable and what aren't, and should I order, if they don't have it and I want to order it, am I ever going to get it? That little sticker on your door or on your website or both really makes a difference. People are going to trust you. They're more comfortable buying from you. And I think that's the huge value we have here in Port Townsend.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. Thanks.
Okay, so
I have
go ahead.
a couple of questions from Facebook. And because we know here at the Chamber, people call us, unfortunately, on a regular basis with challenges with businesses or perceived challenges with businesses, and send us letters and emails. And, we always, whether they're members or not, reach out to them and say, hey, this person reached out to us. You might want to get involved and help mitigate this. And oftentimes those complaints go further to the Better Business Bureau because for whatever reason, they weren't taken seriously. And I think the question we had from Facebook, more than one question, what happens to me if someone files a complaint against me? If they're a BBB member and if they're not.
So if they're a BBB member, we have two different teams. So the accredited businesses have a separate team, and that goes through their dispute process on that side. On the non-accredited businesses, we have a team called Resolution, and they deal with all of the non-accredited. Now, the process is the same, whether they're accredited, whether they're not. However, there are two different teams. Now, you may go, hold it, this doesn't seem right, but we do expect those accredited businesses to step it up, not to give in, but to be responsive. They're held to that higher standard that they don't respond, we're going to be on them, because they could lose their accreditation. But we've also educated them to a certain level. So we treat both the same in that sense, but they are two different teams that deal with it.
Well, and that is really good to know. And that one of the other questions was, how does that work? And thankfully you answered that. And then the third question, because there's a lot of complaints in the tourist community, whether they're accurate or not, is that can people who look us up see the complaint? And if it's there, can they see what the resolution was, or if there wasn't? And how long does it stay visible?
So it stays visible for 3 years. And so do reviews. Reviews and complaints all drop off after 3 years. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is after 3 years, enough time has passed. Let's move on. We want to keep things recent and current. But at the same time, the answer to the other question is they see the complaint and they see the back and forth. I had a business here in Hawaii. He was so upset he got a complaint because he prided himself on doing good business. And when he was telling me a story, the consumer was upset because he kept trying to call her and she only wanted to talk to the sales rep. He was the president and owner of the company. And I said, people are going to read that and they're going to see that, hold it, you had the owner of the company calling you and you didn't want to respond. So I go, that's the storytelling, people who read it, because too many times we see somebody out there say, this was terrible, I'll never go there again, but they have nothing backing them up, right? So we want a resolution option. And, we get a lot of complaints and we have to look at them for merit to see whether we can post it, right? We are about between consumer and business. So sometimes we get employees to complain, but that has nothing to do with the transaction between business and consumer. So we will redirect them to the appropriate agencies to reach out to, because that's not in our purview.
And I guess the last Facebook question is something you just kind of spoke to, and that's the reviews. Because we know from being online that reviews aren't always independent reviews. And how does that work with the BBB?
So
What
we
do you
vet
do
it.
with that?
Yeah, we go through it to make sure that this person is actually an individual, not a bot. And then read it. I will send you some information too. Part of our partnership is we actually did a story recently on customer reviews and what to look for in a fake customer review. Because
Perfect.
sometimes you will see it's the same verbiage. All of a sudden you get all these different reviews, but they all have the same verbiage. And that's because these companies have told them exactly what to say. So we've got some tips, and Arlene, I most definitely will share that one with you because that was really good, because statistically they're showing about 20%, 20 to 30% of reviews are fake.
It is really hard for the consumer to know which ones are and which ones aren't. So I think that would be really helpful. And one of the questions on one of the questions, and Lori had the same question, but one of the other questions in the chat was, you know, how does the partnership with the BBB help the community? We know from our side, but we'd love to hear it from you.
So the idea behind this partnership is really to help it work with the chambers on educating both the businesses, mainly businesses, because that's your gig, right? But also consumers. And so like some of the content I just mentioned with the articles, and we put out so many articles a month. We'll be sharing all of that content with the chamber, and that will be up to the chamber how they want to repurpose it. They can use it in any way or form they want. In addition to like webinars like this, we have a portfolio that we're doing. Like right now, we're doing on mitigating miscommunication, and that really goes further into the dispute resolution, but also how to prevent it from the start. And then what are those options moving on? We also are working, I have one on cybersecurity. That has been the biggest thing when we talk about ransomware, because the real issue for any business is where it's probably going to come in is through your employees, not intentionally. It's just educating them what they can and cannot do. So we have presentations on that. We have on the impact of trust and how that actually equates to the bottom line. How the more trusted your company is, the quicker you get to point of sale, and that you can equate all that into your net. And then one that was very much needed last year, and that was the power of pivoting and talking about what that agile workforce is and kind of steps to put that in place. So part of it is we're going to be that resource for you guys, and also for us. We're getting in front of businesses that help us further our mission. So that's really important to us.
Well, I think one of the things that we're planning on doing is putting some of that information that you share into one of the digital publications that we put out at least once a month, Jeff Connects, so that that reaches a very broad audience of both businesses and consumers. And educated consumers are really helpful to our businesses. So
very much so. We even had articles last year on how to be a good consumer.
Perfect.
That was a challenge, and you guys have tourism, and so do we, and we're still dealing with that out here, where customers are not being very friendly or nice to the employees right now.
Yeah, it's a sad fact, and we all have that workforce and supply chain challenge as well. So very difficult everywhere right now, and it just puts another layer of difficulty on both the consumer side and the business side. Lori, did you have a question?
My question was, and when you brought up about the employees going to the BBB site, I thought that was very insightful, because I know that's what my employees, I've just hired 2 of them. But what I'm finding is people are using Google reviews. So yes. I am not getting, when we ask the question, when they call into our office and we say, how do you hear about us? It's always Google reviews. Your reviews are so good. And so I was kind of curious how that's making an impact, because maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I would have said the BBB, and I know you do so much more than that, especially based on this presentation. But now it seems that we are getting so many folks, and it's all based on Google reviews. So just kind of comment on that.
No, and you're right. Google's great. And we actually work with Google on most definitely on some things, but on the review side, I think you're right. Google has that down. We most definitely have that back and, we have it on our website, but we are more than just that lead generation. So I understand. And I think it's hard for anybody on that realm to compete with Google. But what we do, like we mentioned, is just so much more, but the review does help. It was something that we were able to add in so that people could go there and say, okay, we know they have vetted this review. And that was really what that was about.
Yeah, because we had one, it's kind of weird, but the trend was I had a person send through a resume. I sent him a response to interview him. And next thing I know, we had like a 4-star Google review. We're like, wait a minute, why would this guy give us first off, should have been 5, but for him to even do a review on him sending through, it's that kind of stuff. And I know they went back and they vetted it and took it off and, crazy stuff. But I just thought and I don't want to say like in this day and age, but that's what I hear. I don't hear the BBB as much as I hear Google reviews.
No, and it is an issue we have been facing too, right? We've been around for so long. I will tell you exactly what my daughter said to me. I've changed her mind though in the meantime. She goes, Mom, Google, BBB is for boomers. And yeah, I'm a boomer, but now she has learned so much more. So I know I have been vindicated when she came up earlier this week and said one of her friends had been impacted with a scam, an unemployment scam. And what did she need to do? And so I put it all together for my daughter, and all of a sudden my daughter is singing a different tune. So we have to do a better job of letting them know. That's, I think, probably our biggest mistake was over the years not really explaining what we do.
Great, thank you.
Other questions from the team? Richard.
Yes, I just want to say one thing about a lot of different places you can get reviews. I think that one thing that the BBB does that a lot of these other sites don't do is you verify. And that's where I can put a nice review through any type of these websites, but they don't really check and see whether or not I've been a customer or whatever. So I always look at the BBB as a reliable source for reviews, and I think that's really important. But also, I just want to say that I want to thank Arlene for doing all the work to make the chamber accredited, because once again, what we've been trying to do over the past couple of years is making this chamber, your chamber, more relevant to the community by bringing additional resources. And so the BBB partnership is just one more resource that we're bringing to the Jefferson County business community. So thank you.
And thank you, Richard. And Roseanne, thank you so much for sharing the information and the information that you and I are both going to continue to share with each other and our community. It's time for us to talk about our brieflies. And in brief, there's a lot going on at the chamber. So I'll just run through this really fast, knowing all of this is on our website. And I will be sending out endless e-blasts to all of you to remind you of this stuff. August 25th, we have the school districts, and it's all of the school districts this year, meet up for the new staff. And there's going to be a private meeting with them and some government officials earlier. But on August 25th, from 6 to 7 at the Cotton Building, you can meet our government officials and all of our school district officials and the new superintendent of schools, who is absolutely fabulous, from Port Townsend. And on September 10th, we are having a Women in Leadership virtual meeting, and that is going to be with the SBA, who is going to be sort of previewing for us all of the new programs they have for women-owned businesses. And there's some fabulous new changes happening there. September 17th, we have an employment organization who specializes in the Olympic Peninsula, and they're going to talk about hiring in the COVID environment. And it's a difficult time for us to be hiring people. Lori, I'm thrilled to know that you got 2 new employees. We have an open job that is proving to be not that easy to fill. And then on October 1st, And October 17th, I think, we have two things coming up. And one is University of Washington doing a climate change presentation and specific to our area and the challenges with rising tide. And the other is we're going to do a cafe meet and greet with our new businesses, the new entrepreneurs, the new generation of businesses in Jefferson County, which are skewing in the 30 to 40 age bracket for owners and are very entrepreneurial and very different. On August 20th, the cafe is Meet Port Hadlock. And it is about Hadlock and Chimacum and all of those areas, very much like we did with Port Ludlow. And we are going to have a panel of business owners and people in the community who are going to share why they love it and the resources there so that we can continue to shop local. And so now, if any of you have something going on at your business that you want to share with us, we'd love to hear about it. I'm seeing nothing's going on. That's not possible here. Richard, do you want to share something with the Land Trust? Richard, you are unfortunately muted.
Thank you. I do that all the time. The Land Trust has been very busy this summer. We've got a lot of projects in the works. We are getting ready to close on a number of properties up in Cappy's Trails area, which I know many people in this community love. And so just stay tuned because we've got a lot of things happening going into the fall.
That sounds exciting. And I want to thank you again, Roseanne. This has been absolutely fabulous. And we will stay in touch. And to all of you for joining us today, we wish you a great weekend and look forward to seeing you on some more cafes. So stay safe, stay healthy, and encourage everyone to mask up and vaccinate. And most importantly, please shop local. Have a good one.